As one of the world's most famous brands, Pepsi has been standing firm during these really difficult economic times. Unlike a lot of the stocks we've been looking at recently, yeah, they had a bit of a dip in March, but after that, they pretty much just came back to where they were and have just kept marching forward. Is there still any value left to be had at this current stock price? Today we're going to take a look at the third quarter earnings report and try to figure out if Pepsi is still a buy right now. Welcome back, family. My name is Trey, getting in touch with you from Japan. On today's video, we're going to be looking at Pepsi. Normally, we're talking about stocks, investments, entrepreneurship. We got a new series coming up soon, breaking down a bunch of stuff we've been learning through entrepreneurship and through our growth over the years. So please check that out. If you have a moment, please hit the like, hit the bell, hit the subscribe button. And we would love it if you were part of our community here. Looking forward to talking to you in the comments section after this video as well. So in Pepsi's third quarter earnings report, they did have a bunch of good news, despite what's happening in the world, despite pandemic conditions, and maybe even thanks to the pandemic conditions. Things have been looking pretty good for Pepsi, especially in their snack division. Pepsi's market cap stands at $195 billion right now, which ranks it in the top 100 companies in the world in terms of market cap. And they primarily focus on drinks and snacks. Unlike their competitor Coca Cola, snacks are becoming a greater and greater part of their portfolio. Coca Cola, on the other hand, dominates big time in the drinks market. Over the years, Pepsi has been in the habit of acquisitions. In recent years, they've added Quaker Oats, as well as Tropicana, and more recently in this year, they also added RockStar energy drinks, which I'll mention in a minute. But Quaker Oats brand and Tropicana brand make up about 65% of their bottom line profits, which is interesting to look at. Here is a graphic that shows a bunch of the brands that PepsiCo controls now. On the left, we have a bunch of snacks. Tostitos make up a really big part of sales this year. Cheetos, and strangely Cheetos pasta, I think it was. Super would never ever see that in Japan. Make up a growing portfolio of their snack and food category. They also have Doritos, Lay's, Sun Chips, Fritos, Ruffles. Under the Yum brand, KFC, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut are all Pepsi. Under the Quaker brand, they have Life, Chewy, Aunt Jemima, apparently whose name might be changing soon because of BLM, Crispy Minis, Harvest Crunch, Captain Crunch. And in their drinks portion, they have a bunch of different brands like Mug, Mountain Dew, Lipton, 7-Up, Pepsi, Tropicana, Gatorade. Interestingly, I just did a little video on Lululemon, and I did another one on Peloton. With the transition to people doing sports at home, Gatorade, and therefore Pepsi, are also, seeing some benefit from that as well. And that being said, with more people spending more time at home and less time at restaurants by default, more and more people are spending a larger portion of their food budget on snacks. And Pepsi is one of the big beneficiaries of this trend recently. They also mentioned that Bubbly, Gatorade Zero, and Mountain Dew Zero Sugar, which are all kind of newer products in their portfolio, have combined sales of more than $1 billion already. So that goes to give you kind of an idea of the scale we're talking about when we're looking at Pepsi. One of the really interesting challenges you have to think about when you're running beverage and snacks, in Pepsi's case, businesses, is that you need to figure out how to get the raw materials. You need to figure out how to make them into the chips or the drinks or whatever. Then you need to figure out how to bottle them, how to ship them, and also how to display them in the stores where you're selling them. Figuring out the best way to display them in the stores you're selling them in is also called merchandising. Unlike Coca Cola, Pepsi is really interesting because they have snacks and they also have drinks as really significant parts of their portfolio. So they've been making big investments in recent years into building up and also taking ownership of as much of that process as possible. So they even have their own trucks delivering to convenience stores or supermarkets, and they can figure out how to do the merchandising. So that's one of the really strong advantages that they have. Interesting, when looking at salty snacks, Pepsi is 10 times bigger than their next biggest competitor in the market. So they're the biggest in the world when it comes to salty snacks. And so compared to other competitors who probably are only just doing drinks or drinks and a little bit of snacks, having such a huge stronghold both in snacks and drinks allows you to multiply on that distribution system that you need to set up for both of those independently. So if you already need to go to this 7-Eleven to drop off all these many drinks, now you're adding all these salty chips and stuff too. That gives you much more productivity in distributing those, but it also gives you more leverage in negotiating shelf space and things like that. I mentioned earlier about the RockStar Energy Drinks acquisition in March. Interestingly, this is one of the ways that Pepsi is leveraging merchandising. And because especially in scenarios like convenience stores where the space, the physical space in the store is so limited, having RockStar as your own thing, basically by buying that brand, the amount of shelf space you own that other competitors can no longer own goes up. And so that's another way big companies like this can keep their products in front of people. So it's like if I go to the convenience store here in Japan, Lawson or Family Mart or 7-Eleven or Seiko Mart, like almost everywhere I look, there's a Pepsi product, which is really, really interesting and kind of scary. But as a stockholder and as an investor, one of those things that's kind of like, wow, this company is going to be around for a very long time. So speaking of Japan, I wanted to zoom out to the entire world as well. Globally, the top 3 players in this segment control 40 to 70% of the entire world market share when it comes to food and snacks. Looking at global market shares, Pepsi commands about 7% of the non-alcohol ready-to-drink beverage market, while Coca Cola holds about 21 or 22%. The closest competitor after Pepsi is Nestle, who only controls about 3.5%. When looking at just carbonated soft drinks, Coca Cola controls about 40% of the global market share, while Pepsi holds about 20%, and then number 3 is Keurig Dr. Pepper at 4%. But when it comes to snacks, it's the other way around. Pepsi controls about 30 to 40% of the entire global market share. And in the US, it's an even bigger number than that. I want to take a minute to jump into some of the more specific nitty-gritty numbers from their third quarter report recently, but I did want to mention increased costs, as many companies are facing, increased costs in terms of employment like protection, like gear, so they're not, having to worry about passing around viruses or anything like that. And there's also hazard pay for those working in more dangerous conditions. So these extra costs did hit the balance sheet, but that being said, the company still grew on the whole. The top of the third quarter report outlined the net revenue growth. In the third quarter, they were up 5.3%, whereas year to date, they're up 3%. They did mention that core operating margins held quite steady, down just a little bit to 16.8%. Revenues were up 5.3% year over year, to about $18.1 billion. And that's just in one quarter. We saw 6% organic growth in the snack and food portfolio, and we saw 3% organic growth in the beverages portfolio. When they say organic growth, that's basically calculating in currency exchange rates and also like factory upgrades and things like that. So it's really just trying to focus in as much as possible on the actual growth of the food or drinks. One of the tricky things about living in Japan is that the USD to yen rate is often changing, and so we have income in both of these places, and sometimes we need to think about when is it better to switch one to the other or vice versa. And really, really big companies have that times billions of dollars kind of thing. So that's why they use that organic growth rate versus just like straight up USD in all of their numbers. Earnings per share for the third quarter was up 10% to $1.65, but year to date, they're down 4% to $3.79. That being said, management has stated that they're pretty confident on the outlook for the rest of the year, despite the changes and closings and openings and all that stuff going on in society at the moment. They're confident that they can provide a 4% organic growth rate on the year as a total, with $5.50 EPS. Should also mention that this quarter, the international segment as a whole also grew 4%. So, Pepsi, what's the deal? They're one of those stocks that just marches forward. A lot of people prefer cola over Pepsi for one reason or another. If you'd like me to take a deeper dive into comparing both of them, to choose one or the other, is one better than the other? Let me know in the comment section. I haven't actually looked into cola in a long time. I have owned cola. I'm not sure if I've owned Pepsi. I don't think I've actually owned Pepsi. I remember looking into it a few years ago, but I don't think I ever actually bought it. But that being said, Pepsi, it's just one of those huge companies like Visa or something like that, where, by the way, if you haven't seen my Visa video, check it out. But it's just one of those big companies that's just so big and so dominant and always kind of acquiring new little companies and always kind of inventing new kind of niches and health drinks and things like that, offering healthier versions of the things they already have. And they just control so much of the floor space in all of the supermarkets and stuff that you don't have to worry that it's going to be disappearing. So if you feel like your portfolio could use a little bit more stability, I feel like it's one of those stocks that's just going to be one of those rock solid things that's just providing a little bit of growth, 3, 4, 5% per quarter and per year. That being said, you're not going to see 20, 30, 40% growth per year or the stock price going super crazy. Interestingly, when we looked at the 1-year stock price chart here, we see like pretty steady price at like 150-ish, and then we see drops down and whoop, right back up to that kind of 140-ish level. And that's really kind of where I think it should be valued. I don't think for the price you pay, you're getting ripped off like we've seen with a lot of companies lately, but I think you're getting a fair value, but you're also just getting a really solid company. They provide a stable dividend of 2.95% per year, which works out to $1 a quarter. And so yeah, I think Pepsi is just one of those really solid companies. I'm personally not going to run out and go grab them. My personal investing style and preference lately is to be a little bit more high risk, to be a little bit more on the kind of bleeding edge with high-tech companies trying to change the world, you know, Tesla, Square, maybe Lemonade, these kinds of companies, and also a little bit more tech heavy. I've been looking at more real estate. I did a video on O Realty recently, which was pretty solid. And I've also been looking at some other stocks, which I hope to be sharing about in upcoming videos as well. But yeah, I think if you're looking to add a little bit more stability to your portfolio, you can't really go wrong with Pepsi. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Are you going to be picking up more? Are you going to be selling some? What do you think with all this potential volatility on the horizon with the election? I think I just saw a headline that said Trump has coronavirus now. Not sure how that's going to impact things, especially with the election next month. So looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Are you going to be grabbing some Pepsi or not? Have a great week, guys. I love you, and looking forward to talking to you in the comment section. Bye-bye.